down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. Thank you for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman, and my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. So as always, gang, before we get going, please take a moment, tell your photography friends that we are live right now streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. As always, they're the quickest way to get the word out. You can also use the link that is in the description below the video, and I will go ahead and I will paste that link right here into the chat window for you. It's tog.chat/live. Okay, so we've got a lot of photographers here from all over the world right now, so as always, please check in, say hi, let me know that you're here. Annette's here, Philip, Cosplay Studio, Ajax, Sven is here, Jean Edward, Rich, Kyle, Michael T, I know Ken's here, Lolo-san is in the shower, but he'll be back. It's what it says, honest, okay? Harry Harrison, Doug, you made it. Gord, Angle, thank you all for coming out for a Wednesday night. I really appreciate it. So as always, start posting your questions. I am going to do my best to get everything answered in our 90-minute, 1-hour program. But let's dive in. I don't want to waste any more time because there are some really good questions already lined up and waiting for us tonight, okay? So the first that I have on my list here, you ready? This comes to us all the way from China. Michael's got a question from the subtropical city of Guilin, China, and I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, so please accept my apologies. He states it becomes very humid where he's at. Do I have any suggestions on combating fungus on his equipment when storing it? And I'll tell you right now, gang, this is something that not enough photographers pay attention to. So you should. I have an idea. There's going to be a video coming up on that sometime soon. But he goes on to say that he can't afford the, high-end dry boxes that you can buy. So he could really use some DIY suggestions. Well, so Michael, actually great question, especially since it's summertime here in the US and you live in a subtropical place where it's probably humid a lot of the year. And indeed, as I mentioned, not enough photographers pay attention to that. And between the optical glass on our cameras and between the sensors that we have, we don't want mold and mildew and fungus growing on them. We simply don't, because it's going to destroy a piece of equipment. Even this studio right here is in the basement of my home, which means it's all concrete walls, which means if I don't do anything, it gets very high humidity. You ideally want to keep your humidity where you're storing your cameras well below 50%. I encourage you to go at least below 40%. I have a dehumidifier that I run when I'm not working in the studio. And I also do have one of those dry storage cabinets that Michael mentioned that I keep my gear in if I'm going to be gone for a long period of time. And that dry storage cabinet actually is not in my studio. I keep it located elsewhere in the house. Now, that being said, Michael, first let me tell you, before we get to the DIY, let me tell you that depending on where you're at in the world, so I can't speak for what the costs are in China, but I can tell you that here in the US, those dry storage cabinets actually aren't super expensive. When you factor in what you pay for camera, lenses, and gear, you can buy the smaller dry storage cabinets for like under $200, and you can get a pretty big one for under $500, which again, when we compare that to the cost of a camera and a couple lenses, that's actually really inexpensive. When I say a big one, I mean it would hold a massive system. So, you can go to B&H and go to Amazon. You can do a search, dry storage cabinets for cameras. You'll see what out there is available. So, Michael, there's a couple things that you can do, all right? But here's one DIY trick that I have used in the past. I had a previous studio that was a big studio space, and I just could not afford a dehumidifier that was big enough to be able to handle the whole space. So what I wound up doing is actually not worrying about this studio space. I had a small storage room that I used to store my gear when I wasn't working, and I simply made a dehumidifier. So all I did was take 2 5-gallon plastic buckets. The kind of like if you go to like Home Depot or a hardware store, the 5-gallon plastic buckets without the lids. You need a drill with like a quarter 20 bit on it, and just drill a bunch of holes in the bottom of one of the buckets. While you're at the hardware store, buy a bag of rock salt. Rock salt is pretty cheap. You know, it's the stuff that they put in water softeners and that kind of stuff. Take that rock salt, put some of it in the bucket without holes, okay? And then on top of that, place the bucket with the holes. All right, excuse me, I just did that backwards. Sorry. Put both buckets together, the bucket with the holes inside, put the rock salt inside the bucket with the holes. Check it every week or so, and you will find that it starts collecting water. All you're simply going to do then is lift out the inside bucket, the one with the holes, and the salt in it. Let what little bit of water is left there drip out. Then take the bottom bucket, which is now holding the water, and empty it. That will work well in smaller spaces, like a small room or closet space if you keep your gear isolated. I've heard people that have done that same thing using super absorbent kitty litter, which depending on where you're at in the world, you can get very inexpensively instead of the rock salt. So, and I'm confident that if we, were to do a Google search on how to make a DIY humidifier, there's a bunch of stuff out there, but those are some examples from my experience. Angie's saying desiccant packages. Angie, that works, but there's two problems with that. And I'm only framing that based on Michael's question. One is cost. Desiccant packages actually aren't that cheap. And two, you actually need a ton of them and they run out quickly. And unless you're buying the more expensive desiccant packages, you can't rejuvenate them easily. There are some that you can throw in a microwave and then you can go ahead and reuse them. So for a DIY version, I would go with the salt or the kitty litter, 2 plastic buckets, drill some holes, boom, you're good to go. So Michael, I hope that helps out, okay? So Ken Preston's got a question here. Ken's one of my patrons, so I want to make sure that I get to this question. And Ken, I'll tell you in advance, I'm not sure I have a great answer, so you're going to have to help me out a little bit with some more information. But his question is, he's considering a couple of Godot's 8200 flashes, the pocket flashes like you've seen me using. Whoops, there's one right there, okay? There's one hanging right there, okay? So he can't find anything that he can use to mount these lights where he's able to use his existing Shimera modifiers, because Shimera doesn't really make a speed ring that's going to hold this type of light, and their mounts are very different than like a Bowen's mount, okay? He doesn't have a problem, using them if he's going to use umbrellas or that type of stuff, but he has a lot of these Shimera modifiers, so he's looking for suggestions. So the challenge that I have, Ken, is I am familiar with the Shimera modifiers. I've seen them. I have no idea what the mounts look. And I'll tell you honestly, right before I came on air, I did a Google search. I was looking for, Shimera mounts. And from what I can see, it looks like different Shimera lights or light modifiers have kind of different mounting systems. So maybe at our next Patreon Zoom chat, you can fill me in a little bit on what exactly the mounts look like that you have, or maybe send me a picture of it, and I will do my best to see if I can't either find something or come up with some kind of a DIY type thing, because I do know of lots of little mounting gadgets that you might be able to put together. So unfortunately, I don't have an easy answer for you. Jean Edward, also one of my patrons, has a question, and this one is a business question. It's the only business question I have so far tonight, so go ahead, we'll get this one in. His question is, he's getting inquiries to do photo shoots via recommendations that came from previous clients. And that is a good thing. That's exactly what you want to happen as a photographer if you are trying to make money as a photographer. Word of mouth is absolutely, oh, Ken, awesome, send me some pictures. Word of mouth is absolutely the best way to get new clients. Always has been, and it probably always will be, at least for the foreseeable future, okay? So that being said, John Edwards goes on to say that the issue that he's facing is that several of his previous clients have shared what he charged them, the cost of his services, with these potential new clients. So unfortunately, these new recommendations are coming to him and they are expecting to get these same super low prices from like 2 years ago. Aha, yeah. So his question is, how would I suggest that he avoids this in the future? And obviously does it in a tactful way. He doesn't want to be like, by the way, if you're going to recommend me, don't share the cost of my services since the prices can differ. Yes, that would absolutely be a horrible thing to do. Holy cow. Reverend Rodnell, Australia really is down under and upside down. That's pretty cool, man. So, Jean Edward, I have to give you kind of the morally correct answer first, and then let's try and solve your problem, your immediate problem, right? So this question, folks, is a great example, and you guys have heard me talk in parallel to this many times when talking about pricing. This is why when you decide you're going to start making money, you either don't charge at all and do somebody a favor, or you take the time before you name a price and you start out with, how much money do I want to make a year? How many hours do I want to make work to earn that money? What is my hourly rate? And in addition to that hourly rate, when you are quoting an hourly rate for a job, you have got to be honest with yourself before you give the client that final rate and total. How many hours is it really going to take you? Just because the client is asking you to be there for 1 hour doesn't mean that you are only going to work for 1 hour. You're going to have travel time, setup time, teardown time. You may have time on set waiting for people. You are going to have download time, archival time, post-processing, and the list goes on. All of that has to be figured into your costs. Establish that from the very beginning, and then you'll never have this problem that John Edward is being faced with. Now, a lot of you will say, yeah, but you know what, I'm just starting out. There's no way that my work is worth $100 an hour, $125 an hour. Nobody's going to pay that. You may be completely right. But that doesn't mean you lower your price. What you do is you set your price based on what you need your price to be, and then you offer additional services or breaks to make up the difference. But you never reduce your rate. Once you set a low rate, it is very hard to raise that rate. Now, that information, of course, doesn't help John Edward right now because he's got clients coming in the door that want him to work as cheap as he did 2 years ago. So, John Edward, the best thing that you can do, and my sincere advice to you here, is be honest with the new clients, thank them for their interest, and basically, fall on the sword and say, I have to be honest with you, 2 years ago, I was undercharging. I was just getting started. And while I would love to do this job for you at that price, I simply can't afford to. Don't make it, oh, but my work is so much better now. I'm that good, so you have to pay more. No, that is not the way to make somebody happy, okay? You're simply going to tell them honest, like, I was stupid when I started. Blame it on yourself. But now I'm not stupid. I can't afford to work for that price. And then what I would encourage you to do, offer them something in exchange. So I know that John Edward is doing a lot of portrait work. John Edward, I'm going to guess that these are potentially portrait clients. So remember, when it comes to selling prints, which if you want to make money as a portrait or wedding photographer, and the key words in that sentence were make money. In other words, profit, right? Then that means you're selling prints because there's no money in shooting portraits and there's no money in shooting weddings. The money is in selling the prints and the packages and the afterpieces. So we all know that you can get an 8x10 done at a nice lab for like under $5, right? But yet you're going to charge 50, 75, 100, 125, 150 for that 8x10, depending on your market and depending on how good your work is. So John Edward, you can kind of make up that difference with these clients, and don't make it up to the penny. No. But the idea, make it up a little bit in the sense that you'll say to them, listen, since you're a referral and I really liked name of person who referred you, I'll throw in a couple 8x10s, or I'll throw in an 11x14 for you of your favorite shot. And you tell them normally that would cost this many dollars. And then they start to get the simple math of how they're actually getting a bargain. But, again, at the end of the day, folks, when you are going to do business as a photographer, like real paid business, you don't get every job. And you don't want every job. Not every job is the right fit for you. Not every client is the right fit for you. So you can't go with stuff like, oh my God, I can't lose this. Because even if you're desperate for money, even if you really need the money, taking a job at a rate that is well below your worth makes it impossible for you to earn the income that you need to earn. So you just don't do it. So as you guys have heard me talk many times, if I'm going to cut somebody a break, I'm either going to give them something for free or simply do it for free, but I will never lower my rates, period. So John Edward, that would be my advice there, okay? All right, let's see here. Where are we at? John, hey John, how you doing? Good to see you, man. So John's telling me here, Shimera softboxes use standard speed rings with interchangeable inserts for various strobes. The connector on the Godox, John, it's actually not a connector. They use a Bowens mount and the S-ring, it's called an S-mount adapter, basically clamps down on the flash. So essentially, most of the Godox uses Bowens. But there are a lot of different ways that you can mount those strobes because they have a quarter 20, actually they have two quarter 20 threads on them. So, so there's definitely, ways that it could, kind of be worked out in that sense. Okay, so let's see here. Next up, I got those out. Bill Hardiman has a question. Bill is an Olympus user. Yay. Should someone put, or should you put UV filters on your Olympus lenses to protect the front glass? Pros versus cons. Bill, I'm old school, not gonna lie. One of the first things I learned when I bought my first camera in 1975, 5, was put a filter on the lens. And I've done it ever since. I have had numerous filters in all of my years that have saved the lens. So yes, I've broken them, I've scratched them, etc. The most important thing, in my opinion, to understand with filters at this point is you don't put cheap glass on good glass, right? So you don't spend good money. Just because Olympus lenses are less expensive than a Sony lens, that doesn't mean it's not a good lens. It doesn't mean you're not spending a lot of money. You are. So you don't put cheap glass on good glass. So a good UV filter, it's going to cost you, north of $60, $70. But when you look at the cost of the lens, you should be factoring that in. So I highly recommend using UV filters, mainly for protection, not in terms of something that's going to improve your image quality. However, there are times, especially if you're a landscape photographer, where UV filters are going to have a definite positive impact on your shots. Okay, so that would be my approach there. Okay. Jim Hung has a question. How much can one really learn about lighting while using a mannequin? Wow. Actually, everything, Jim. And here's why. The mannequin gives you the opportunity to take your time. It gives you the opportunity to make mistakes and not have to keep your subject engaged or make mistakes and not have your subject watching you thinking like you're a complete idiot and you don't know what you're doing, and all that kind of stuff. So the mannequin that I use, in case any of you are wondering, whoops, and I do not have the screen set up properly here. So let me get the screen set up really quick. My apologies, gang. The browser is not where it's supposed to be. Gotta hit when that happens, right? So let's get that browser in the right spot here, and I'll get this up on the screen for you guys. So let's see here. We want Amazon. Here we go. Okay, so now I can switch this over. All right, so there you go. This is the mannequin that I use. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the link in the chat window for you. Full disclosure, that is a affiliate link. Thank you. I knew I'd get there eventually. That's an affiliate link. So, if you want to support me, it helps out a few pennies along the way. But there you go, Petru. There's the link. It just came up. Okay. So that's the one that I look at, that I use. You don't have to get the same one, but here's the thing to pay attention to with mannequins. And then, Jim, I want to go back to your actual question of what are the benefits. So the most important thing to pay attention to when you are shopping for your mannequin, right? It's the head. A lot of mannequins really don't have a lot of shape on the face. It's more like a painted on face. You want cheeks. You want recessed eye sockets, brows. You want a nose that sticks out. You want lips. In other words, if you're really going to learn portrait lighting with a mannequin, you want to be able to create shadows and create depth. So that's very important. This particular one does. And when you click on the close-up pictures, you're able to see just how much depth that it has. You can see, like in that picture, it's got shadows, it's got all the important stuff. I mean, it's even got depth in the butt. So like, how can you go wrong? You want to practice fine art nudes? Not the greatest looking butt, but hey, it's a butt, so you can practice, right? But no pun intended. As far as how to go off the rails in one quick question, right? As far as what are the benefits, it really is the idea, Jim, that you have time. and you can take your time, and you can make subtle changes to your lights. You can make dramatic changes to your lights, and you can do comparisons. You could try the light here, and then maybe move it over here, and the subject never moves. So you're able to then compare the images side by side and see what changed, what was different. Okay, so really that's the thing, and I kid you not, guys, I'm really serious. I still use my mannequin today. So you guys know that I'm going to be speaking at Photo Plus in October in New York. I better see as many of you there as possible. I'm going to be doing a photo walk on the Friday morning. I'll be speaking on the Olympus stage all 3 days of the event. So I do hope to see you guys. But for the week prior to Photo Plus, I will be practicing here in the studio with my mannequin to set up the shots that I'm going to do on that stage in real time. And why do I do it? It's real simple. Number one, people come to Photo Plus, they want to be impressed, okay? Number two, the stage is actually very small. It's only about 4 feet deep. So I don't have a lot of room to work with, and the backgrounds are very, very limited. Also, I can't control how bright the light is in the Javits Center in New York, and there are stage lights on me. So as an example, you guys saw the video that I did with Live Composite where I created the backgrounds as I was shooting. I am going to do that in real time during Photo Plus on the stage, even with all those lights on. But that will require a little bit of practice. So that's what I'll be doing with my mannequin. Peter, I would love to do some LA events. Here's the trick, man, real simple. The next time you go to Sammy's, ask to see the store manager and tell the store manager that he has to tell Olympus they need to bring Joe Edelman to a Sammy's event. That's how you get me to LA. Believe me, I don't have to be asked to come to LA more than once. I'll be there. Somebody just has to ask me. Okay? And of course, pay me to get there, but So, yeah, but seriously, tell the folks at Sammy's, do you want me out there? It'll happen. Okay? All right. Next question. And so, Jim, I hope that helps with the mannequin. The link is there in the chat window, guys, for those of you that are interested. Next question I had. This one came from South Africa, if I remember right. This is from Makari Debakwani, and gosh, I hope I got that right. His question was, what is the best way to do macro photography without a macro lens? So now this is good because this question came in early before we started tonight. So for those of you that really enjoy this Q&A, I'll give you a little tip. TogChat starts at 6 p.m. in the evening. However, usually at about 5 p.m., I begin setting everything up here with the computers and the monitors and everything that I need. So I'm in the chat room. So the conversation for TogChat actually starts around 5 p.m. or just after, okay? So Steve Trottier had a couple really good suggestions and guesses, but he missed the one that I think is the cheapest. So his suggestions for Michael were, number one, a macro extension tube, which indeed you can get macro extension tubes very inexpensively. So you would take like your normal 50mm lens, and this fits between your camera body and the lens, turning it into a macro lens. That's option number one. When I told him that there was a much less expensive version yet, he came back with, like a piece of paper with a pinhole in it. Well, yeah, but that's really clunky. But then he also remembered, oh, you can get filters, macro filters that you screw onto the front of your lens, and you can actually get them very inexpensively. That's an option too. The third option, which is actually the cheapest, and this is assuming that you already own a 50mm or a 50mm equivalent lens, right? What you do, and here, let me get this zoom lens off of the camera here, okay? So again, I'm an Olympus user, so this is the OMD EM1 Mark II, and this is my 25mm Olympus Pro lens, the f1.2, which remember is the equivalent of a 50mm. So the way that you can turn this into a macro lens is taking the filter off and doing something that they call free lensing. And basically, you flip it and hold it. And it is going to allow you to focus very, very close by doing so. Now, what do you lose? You lose control of the diaphragm in the lens, right? So you have to shoot wide open when you do it. I didn't say it's perfect, but that's the no dollar option, is to freelance. Steve, you had the right answer in my opinion, and that is to buy the filters. If you're on a budget, folks, buy the filters. They're like cheapest, easiest, super, super simple, but flipping a 50mm lens around and freelancing, you know, totally the easiest way to go. John Edward, no, I am not going to drop the Nikon. I dropped the Olympus in the beginning of the video if you were watching, okay? So that is my answer for you there, Michael, is try flipping your lens around, and you'll find that should work out pretty good for you, okay? All right. Next up on the list here, keep those questions coming, guys. Oh, I see some people that are coming out to talk to me. So Ishmael, you're going to see me in the Bronx? Good, awesome. I'll be there Saturday morning. In fact, you know what? It's worth switching over to that right now. Let me show you guys. Whole bunch of trips and talks coming up, gang. So hopefully I'm going to get to meet a lot of you guys, okay? If you go to my website, all you got to do is click on the Lectures and Workshops tab, okay? So this weekend in particular, Friday night, I'm going to be up in Westchester, New York. It'll take a second to load. It's a good idea to subscribe to my newsletter because I notify people when new stuff's coming up. Friday night, I'll be speaking in Westchester, New York at the Westchester Community College. And then Saturday morning, I'll be at the Fordham Prep School on Fordham University campus in the Bronx. Next week, I'm going to be close to home, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, doing a talk. And then I'm off to Miami. I'll be in Miami on September 28th. And in Sarasota, Bradenton, Florida on Saturday, September 29th. And then, of course, Photo Plus is coming up. So remember, 25th, that's a Thursday, 26th and 27th. Friday morning, the 26th, 9 a.m., I'll be doing a photo walk. I believe that information is already on the Photo Plus website. I haven't seen it myself, but I've been told that it's there. And I will be presenting all 3 days for Olympus on the Olympus stage. And well, I can't tell you exactly what it is, but let's just say that Olympus is doing something a little bit different this year at Photo Plus, and I'm going to be very, very involved in it. So you will have an opportunity to get one-on-one mentoring about portrait photography with me at the Olympus booth. So that's all I can tell you about it for right now, but it's going to be pretty cool. And I'll be there the whole time, okay? Then I'll be in Delaware. In fact, somebody asked me, I had another question that came up here, for a gentleman that signed up for the event that's coming up in Delaware, the Horizon Photography Summit. For those of you that are really into workshops, you know I don't teach a lot of actual workshops. Friday, November 2nd in Newark, Delaware, I'll be teaching a full-day fashion and glamour portraiture workshop. And the question was, what should he be expecting? You know, what's going to happen? What does he need? Etc. Well, what you should be expecting is that I am going to challenge you. I am going to make you think outside the box. I'm going to make you think, or I'm going to make you try things that are different than what you're used to trying. I'm going to show you a lot of the cool little tips and tricks and some DIY stuff that I do. I cover a ton of ground in my workshops, but don't come to my workshops to build a portfolio. If you follow me for very long, you know how I feel about that. It is stupid to go to anybody's workshop for the purpose of building a portfolio. Because you are not going to be the only person with those pictures. You are not creating unique images. You're creating somebody else's images. If you want to be professional and if you want to make money as a photographer, you've got to learn to do your thing, and then you have to find a way to differentiate yourself from the crowd, right? So you come to my workshops to learn. That shouldn't surprise you. So it will be nonstop. They're hands-on. We will have models. We'll have makeup artists, the whole bit. That's what we're doing at the Horizon Summit. And then I'll be presenting on the Saturday and Sunday in Delaware. A little bit later, November 9th and 10th, I'm going to be in St. Louis at Crevcore Camera. And in December, I'll be down in Austin, Texas at Precision Camera for their Holiday Expo. And I've got stuff coming up all the way through next March, actually, March 9th, 10th. I'll be back down in Florida, this time in Fort Myer at the Florida Camera Club Council event. So a lot of opportunities coming up. I'll be adding more. Hopefully, I'm going to get to meet as many of you as possible along the way. So I hope you'll make it out to some of these, okay? Let's see here. Derek, so I just told you I am coming to Florida. Georgia, nothing booked yet, but anything's possible. Stuff's coming in literally, you know, as the days go by, okay? All right, Junior SpaceX launched this week. That's great. I really don't care, man. So Cosplay Studio, the 3D printed extension tube is actually a really interesting idea for making a macro extension tube. So yeah, and there are, if you guys do a little bit of Google searching, there are actually websites out there. It's kind of almost like Etsy for 3D printing. So some of you might know the name of it. Feel free to type it in there. It won't let you put the whole URL in, but you can actually type out the .com, right? They will, there are sites where there are people already making like accessories for your camera brand. And you know, they sell them. It's kind of like an Etsy for 3D printing. And then there are other sites and other companies where if you have the plans for something, you can send it to them, they'll print it for you, send it back. So yeah, 3D printing would actually be, you know, kind of a great option if you, you know, kind of want to tackle that yourself and do that. So Bill Hardiman, you're going to be there at the end of September. Awesome, Miami. That'll be for Pittman Photo Supply. The talk is not actually at their store. That talk is going to be at Pinecrest Gardens, which is a little bit north, a little closer to Miami. In fact, I just finished booking the models today for the Pittman talk and then for also the Johnson talk in Bradenton. I've got some really good talent for both talks, really good makeup artists, so it should be a really good time. I think we're going to be able to have a lot of fun with that. Okay? All right. So let's see here. I'm caught up there. Go ahead, gang, load in some more questions. We're going to run out. You don't want me to run out. Okay. So Mike Osinski has a question here. And this is one, you know, I hear a lot of photographers get themselves all worked up about this one. This is not quite as good as the debate between R and Z, but it's a debate, right? So his question is, Joe, I know you edit your own work in Photoshop, but I was wondering, what is your view on working with a photo retoucher? And do I work with a photo retoucher? So for some reason, a lot of people find it very surprising that I do work with a photo retoucher. Now, let me explain, okay? I don't, and I'm not saying it's bad, but what I don't do is I don't basically do a shoot and then kind of send my images over the wall and they come back looking, ooh, like amazing. No, I don't do that, okay? What I do though is I edit my images, okay? And I do my color correction. I do everything that I need in terms of cropping, you know, contrast controls, all of that stuff. And then I create a set of directions for that image, specifically what retouching I want done. It is usually just flyaway hairs and skin blemishes. The overwhelming 99% of what I have my retoucher in India do is just taking care of that, because that's the tedious, time-consuming stuff that doesn't actually require a lot of skill. It just requires a lot of time to do it well. And then I hand the stuff off to my retoucher, and then 24 to 48 hours, I have it back again. And then I go ahead and I do the finishing work on the image. If I'm going to be using frequency separation, if I'm using any dodging and burning, if I'm doing any compositing of the backgrounds, I do all my own compositing, but you can have a retoucher do that. You can have a retoucher do almost anything. It all depends on how much money you want to spend. But the big question is, you know, is there anything morally bad doing that? No, of course not. For a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, if you think about it, back in the day, photographers used to send their stuff out to film labs to get developed, right? So did that make them less of a photographer if they weren't processing C41 and doing all the color negative and color printing at home? No, that did not make them less of a photographer. That made them a very smart and profitable photographer. That's what it did, right? So the idea that you have to do all your retouching is actually pretty foolish. However, and this is a big however, it is extremely important, and I firmly believe this, like big time. It is extremely important that you are every bit as good as your retoucher. It is extremely important that all the things that you want your retoucher to do, that you are capable of doing. And here's why. It's very similar to working with a makeup artist. When a makeup artist comes in the door, the worst thing you can do is say, yeah, you're the makeup artist, just do your thing, go ahead. And then you hope that it's going to turn out okay. That's really stupid. You have got to take ownership of telling that makeup artist exactly what you want, what you like, what you don't like, how you want the hair done, how you want the makeup done, etc. That is not their job to do that. That is your job to tell them that. It's the same with a retoucher. You can't expect a retoucher to read inside your mind and look at a file that's SOOC straight out of the camera and understand how you imagine that finished file. You just can't. So they're going to fail. So when I send an image to my retoucher, it looks like an old contact print. Everything's like marked up and there's notes all over it. So what I do is like I told you, I do all my color contrast, all my developing of the image, open it into Photoshop. Once it's in Photoshop, I put a layer over top and I put all my directions on the layer with arrows and circles and everything they need to do. So it takes me 5 minutes per image. And then I send it off. And then they do the work and it comes back and the image is exactly the way I want it so that I can do the finishing and give it its kind of finished flavor. So I do highly recommend it. Mike, I know that you are a member of my Facebook group. If you post a question for me in the Facebook group, I will gladly share all of my retoucher's information with you if you would like to reach out and contact him. The only reason I am telling you folks that I will do it via the group is because he happens to be a member of my Facebook group. So I will gladly share his name and contact information. He is great to work with. He is a hustler, very quick to respond, gets the work back quickly. Anytime there is an issue, which is very, very rare, but anytime there's an issue, he gets it resolved right away. I just put the link in the chat window to my Facebook group. So if you're a people photographer and you are not a member of the group yet, my first question to you is why the heck not? But secondly, go ahead and sign up and join. It's a very different kind of Facebook group, okay? So, Ahmad, what's the light mod behind you? You haven't seen one of those. So it depends on which mod you're talking about. If you are talking about, I go to the wrong side every single time. If you're talking about this, whoops, that one, that's not a mod, that's a light. That's called specular. Specular is a set of LED bars. And what's cool about these LED bars is they are just bars, okay? Like so. With a diffusion panel on the front, they are grooved and tracked on the back. If you check out my YouTube channel, there is a video about these from last summer when I did my LED lighting series. So this in the center just happens to be what's called the specular star. But these things come with adapters. You can basically put them together as a square. You can put them together as triangles. You can put them together as octagons. You can do the star, at which point you can shoot through it. There's a hole here where you can put your lens through it. Or the other modifier, again, I'm not sure which one you're talking about there. This one is a collapsible beauty dish of sorts. Not one that is particularly well known. You'll notice I've got a Godox 8200 on the back of it, okay? And if I spin it all the way around, if it'll go all the way around here, you can see the logo there. The logo is the Mo BD. It is by Molite, okay? That's the company that I got this from. Inside, it has a center diffusion panel that you can remove, okay? I'm using the Godox with the bare bulb setup in it. So I'm not sure which one of those mods you were looking at, but those are the two mods that were behind me, okay? All right, so let's see here. I know we had some other questions. Let me catch up with these. James Lewis, you got your first request for a green screen photo shoot for portraits. Do you have any suggestion on how to light it? I'm not sure what is the perfect color green you'll need for post. Well, so before we all get started on this green screen stuff, okay? JR, good. So JR's been paying attention to my videos, James. You need to go back to my gray background video. The first thing I would say is I would really have a discussion with your client to understand what they need. And what I mean by that is just because your client is saying, I need it on green screen so I can change the background, doesn't mean they actually need it on green screen, right? It could mean that they've just been watching too many behind the scenes clips in movies, and so they think it has to be green screen to do that. So let's take care of the green screen thing first, all right? So number one, the color green screen that you're gonna use is simply called green screen. when you go to buy a background, whether you're buying, a collapsible, whether you're buying paper, whether you're buying vinyl, every manufacturer says, this is the green screen. As far as the actual color or Pantone numbers or any of that, I couldn't tell you, James, but I promise you, everybody that sells a green screen has it labeled as a green screen, okay? So if you actually need green screen. Now, here's the thing. For portraits, James, I would go to the ends of the earth if I were you to not use a green screen, because it's a nightmare. If you have your subject too close to the green screen, you will get color fringing on your subject, meaning their faces and their skin tones are going to start to go green, and you don't want that, okay? So if you're going to use green screen, you need a lot of separation from the background, a lot. My advice is find out what exactly they're going to do with the images in terms of swapping the backgrounds and what kind of a background they're going to put in. As JR mentioned, and as I've talked about in previous videos, you could do it on gray, you could do it on white, you could do it on black. It depends on exactly what the client's doing with the image, right? You just need a solid color that stands out from your subject so that you can select it easily and mask it easily. That's all you need. So all of the composite images that you see me do are all done on gray, all of them. The only variation to that is if I know that my background, let's say blue, let's say I know that the background behind my subject is going to be a blue background, I will shoot on a gray background and throw blue gels on it so that if my masking is not perfect, the blues blend together. That's it. But otherwise, I would avoid green at all costs, okay? So, excuse me for a second because John Edward is whining that his OCD is killing him because I don't have the modifier completely put back together properly. So we'll take care of that there, okay? John Edward, I hope it's not going to bother you if I don't roll the green back up, for right now, okay? So anyway, so that would be my recommendation, James, is honestly just avoid green screen like the plague. Green screen is not as simple to work with as people make it out. So, find out if your client actually truly needs a green screen. Frequently people will use the phrase green screen, just like, they use the word Kleenex for tissues, but Kleenex is a brand, so that's what I would check. So Chaz Madge, any tips for prepping images for newspapers? They often look so poor due to newsprint. No, honestly, newsprint looks like crap. It's just how it is. There was a time back in the late 70s, early 80s when photojournalism was in its heyday and color had just come really into its own in terms of color printing on newsprint. And newspapers actually put a lot of money and a lot of effort into really high quality reproduction. Believe me, I feel blessed that I got to work in the newspaper industry during the heyday of photojournalism because, that was the time period when you would pick up a daily newspaper routinely and the front page would have pictures that were half a page tall or a full page wide. You just don't get that kind of stuff today, okay? But honestly, Chaz, the best thing to do if you're doing newspaper printing, number one is prep an image the way you like it. Send it off to the photo editor or to the newspaper you're working with and ask them, how is the contrast on this? And that's really the piece you're worried about for newsprint, especially if it's black and white. How is the contrast? Do they prefer more contrast, less contrast, etc.? But other than that, there's really nothing, shall we say, special that you do, okay? You just create good images. So, Mike Davis, Joe, is there a discount code for Olympus gear by dropping my name? You're interested in the 40 to 150 Pro? Any personal experience with this lens? This lens gives the same perspective of an 80 to 300 full frame. Well, personal experience, yeah, there it is. I just took it off my camera in the beginning of the show here, so I love it. Keep in mind, you can also add the 1.4 teleconverter to it, which takes it out even further yet, and plus that 1.4 teleconverter, if you wind up getting a 300 millimeter down the road, then gives you an 840 millimeter lens. But this particular lens, just to give you some examples, Mike, it's basically like half the price of the Nikon, focuses at like half the distance, it's half the weight, it's like half of everything, and it's much, much more range. Plus it's weather sealed. Can't beat that. Like, you really can put these lenses in water. I don't mean submerged underwater, but I mean like in the rain, in the snow. If you guys saw the pictures that I posted of my grandson a few months back when he was on the slip and slide, and I had not this lens, but the 7-14, under the water spray, no bad side effects, no nothing. The lenses are really quite, impressive what they will do. So with regards to your question about with regards to your questions about the discount code, Mike, I wish I could say yes, but I don't have a discount code. And aside from Amazon too, it's worth noting, just because there are certain YouTubers that have a real issue with shilling, as he likes to put it, and I love Ken, you guys know that, but the only affiliate that I do is the Amazon one. Any of the other companies that I'm talking about or recommending, whether it be Olympus, whether it be Tether Tools, any of them, I don't partake in the affiliate programs. I don't make money on them. So, but I will tell you, Mike, that Olympus routinely runs really good sales on their lenses. So what you should be doing is two things. One, and so sorry guys, but here's the quick Olympus thing for tonight. So here's a tip for all you Olympus users. One, you need to go to the Olympus website, getolympus.com, subscribe to their email newsletter. All right, that's the first thing. Second thing is, every time, if you haven't set up a user profile yet, if you're an Olympus user and you don't have a user profile on their website, you're missing out. Set one up. You get like 50 points for signing up for the newsletter. You get, I think it's 20 points every time you upload an image into your page on the user gallery. They run contests. In fact, September, this month, if you're an Olympus user, you better enter the contest. This is Portrait Month at getolympus.com. You have a chance to win prizes, and guess who the judge is? Me, okay? So, but those points, it's not like most places that give you points. The Olympus points are of really, really good value, and you can use them towards gear, you can use them towards swag, whatever you want to do, okay? So, so anyway, unfortunately, no, I don't have a discount code that I can give you, but I assure you, it's worth signing up for their newsletter and keeping track of, what's going on with their sales or contests. Not to mention, when they send the newsletters out, there's almost always really good tips and links back to the Olympus Learning Center, of which I'm writing articles for now as well. Really good information there. So it's totally worth it. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Bear with me one second here, gang. Looks like we got a lot of people just looking to make trouble tonight. Gotta love that. All right. So I answered Chaz's question. I got Mike. I took care of the diffuser for Jean-Edward. James, it'll be post-processed in LA by a Hollywood editor. Yeah, I mean, honestly, James, that still doesn't mean that they need green screen. So I would have a specific, conversation. And if you do have to do green screen, like I said, lots of distance, because you do not want green fringing, okay? Cassandra Wolf, am I still using the honey badgers? I am not using honey badgers anymore. Shocker, right? So honey badgers are great. I stand by everything I had to say about the honey badgers. I decided to cut the cord. So Cassandra, your good eyes, you're going to make me tip my hand here. I was going to do a video about this in a week or two. I decided to cut the cord. I have gone all wireless in my studio completely. So like, for instance, there's an 8200 hanging up there. You saw there's the 8200 here. I have 9 of them set up here in the studio, in all the places that I used to have the honey badgers set up. Nothing against the honey badgers, and yes, honey badgers are coming out with the lithium battery ones that are going to allow you to take them out on location. They're going to be portable. They'll be announcing those lithium battery honey badgers at Photokina in 2 weeks, I think it is, 3 weeks. They look absolutely awesome. It literally, for me, is because I'm doing so much traveling at this point and so much teaching on the road. I really want to be, you guys have heard me talk about cameras and how important it is for me to be using the same stuff so that I don't have to think about it. Like, even when I switched to Olympus, I switched to Olympus like for my live streaming, for my video, for everything, because I don't want to switch back and forth. I was doing good video with the Panasonics. They're not bad cameras, but I want to work with the same stuff all the way around. So now, especially, I want to do the same stuff with, my lighting as well. And that way, with these S clamps, especially when I'm ready to go on the road, I just like 2 turns, pull the strobe out, stick it in the case, and it's on the road. And I'm same settings, same everything, so that's basically why I made the switch. But if you like the honey badger for that, and you don't mind the extra size and the weight for location work, then yeah, you're going to be really excited when they come out with their lithiums. Let's see here. I just saw a question go by. Ulysses, didn't I have a friendship with the honey badger? Yeah, I was sponsored by honey badgers. Well, by Interfit, by the honey badgers, and I terminated my contract with them simply because I knew that I was going to make this change. Again, nothing against the honey badgers. They're awesome lights. I highly recommend them. And I will say this too, which is a really, really cool thing. So a lot of you, just to give you some background on how sponsorships work, okay? Generally, when you get a sponsorship from a company, maybe they give you a couple little pieces of gear or something. They don't pay you money. Sorry, it's not that cool. But they will also, Ishmael, thank you so much, man, for the super chat. I appreciate it. They will also help to promote you on social media. Sometimes they will pay you to do speaking engagements and things like that, like I do for Olympus. So I'll tell you guys very honestly, I was one of the creative pros with Interfit, which was absolutely an honor. There are some great photographers in that group. As part of that, when I joined them, if you remember, if you go back through my videos, I joined them right after I did the video about the Paul C. Buff Digibee. Right after I did it, I got slammed by people all around the world, except for the US, because as it turns out, you can't buy the Digibees and the Paul Buff product outside the US, unless you want to jump through a lot of hoops. So I contacted Interfit. They were interested in bringing me on board, and I played hardball with them. I'll tell you totally honestly. I said, guess what? I need 7. Because I just bought 7 of the Paul C. Buff lights. So I wasn't about to go buy all new lights. There's no way I could afford that. I'm not rich. So I told them, you give me 7, I'll switch, and I'll use them. Because I like them. I had seen them. Actually, I saw them last year at Photo Plus in New York. That's when I got to see them. So they agreed. They said, that's great for us. So bottom line, they did send me the lights. I've used them for last year. I love them. They're wonderful. I just need something that fits where I'm going now and what I'm doing. And they're just not small enough and portable enough. And even the new lithium ones, they're going to be basically the same size as the existing honey badgers. But here's the cool thing, and it's worth pointing this out because I want people to know, Interfit's a great company. When I terminated the contract with them, technically I'm supposed to return the gear to them, right? That's reasonable. They asked me if I wanted to keep the gear. And I said, well, it's not really fair for me to keep it because I'm not going to use it. So I said, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? Let me find a school local to me that has a photography program that is in need of lighting that I can donate the lights to on their behalf. And they were like, right out of the box. So actually it's really cool. So I'm going to be donating all the honey badger gear to a local college that has a photography program with some really, really antiquated lighting. And I've agreed to go in for that school and do some lecturing and some teaching for them, in terms of teaching their students and their instructors on how to use the honey badgers and getting them up to speed and everything. So yeah, that's it. Again, like I said, still very, very much, very much a fan of those lights. It's just not fitting where my work is going at this point. So, let's see here. Bill Hardman, you saw my video from WPPI 2018 and ordered one with the barn door kit. The 8200s are great. So if, for those of you that have been around for a while, you may remember when the 8200s first came out, I bought one stupidly. Like, I will admit, it was gas. It was gear acquisition syndrome. It looked really cool, the idea that there was this speedlight gadget that was 3 times more powerful than a speedlight. And of course, it's still not really a speedlight, right? I mean, it's just not. It's heavier, it doesn't flex, etc. So when it first came in, I was actually really bummed because they are heavier than speedlights. And I don't know why, I just never read the specs, which I should have, right? So I didn't use it at first. I was actually really irritated just because it was so darn heavy. And I couldn't, if you guys remember, I used to use, with my speedlights, I used to use the PhotoFlex Rapidome, which I love that modifier. But there was no way for me to mount the Godox 8200 on it. So I was a little irritated. So I didn't use it at first. And then actually, Bill, right before I went to WPPI and started doing the speaking for Olympus is when I realized, hey, these Godox lights would be a lot easier to travel with and present with on stage. So that's when I really started kind of, kind of playing with them and working with them and just realized yeah, this would just make my life so much easier because, again, it's simply so that everything I'm doing here in the studio with the same lights, I can go out on location, they travel easy, and boom. So again, please, the one thing I hope that none of you will ever do, like I know, so like Bill, you got an AD200 because of me, and I appreciate that. I know that a lot of folks have purchased Olympus gear because of me. Here's the one thing, folks, that I pray that you will never ever do. Never follow me blindly with your gear. Please don't follow Tony and Chelsea. Please don't follow Fro or Jason Lanier or Manny Ortiz or Ken Wheeler or anybody blindly, okay? If you like what I do and you hear the passion in me talking about gear, then test it. Test it. In fact, many of you have met me like at WPPI and also at like imaging and asked me about the Olympus gear, and I gave you all the same response. I told you how much I love it, and then I told you go rent it. Go rent it before you buy it. Okay? That's the great thing. And I realize some of you in different parts of the world are unable to rent gear, which really sucks, and I'm sorry. But whenever possible, try the gear out. Even if all you can do is go to a camera store and ask them to put a disc in and take some pictures right there, try the gear out. Hold it, feel it, touch it, everything, okay, before you buy it. Don't just listen to somebody on YouTube, and definitely just because that person switches. Like, so I want to be clear. These lights, these Godox lights, I like them. They're not going to make my photography any better at all. Zero. They are better for my lifestyle needs right now. To be able to shoot in the studio, to be able to pack up easily, travel conveniently, go on location, and not have to think about, oh wait, which light am I using today? That's what they're better for. But they're not going to make my pictures any better. Believe me, if that were the case, I'd have bought 100 of them, right? So, that's not going to happen. So again, I do appreciate, the fact that you put a lot of faith in what I say, and I hope that you understand that's the thing. Like just with Olympus, while I will take a sponsorship from a company, and I consider it a big honor to be sponsored by Olympus, my words will always be my own and my recommendations will always be my own, because otherwise then I have no credibility. Okay? I saw somebody said their props to, Jean-Edouard, props to Interfit. Yeah, I mean, really, Interfit was great about it. They totally understand. I mean, they've been supportive from the get-go. So, I wish them all the best luck. And I'm sure that once their lithium unit comes out, I'll be talking about it. Absolutely, because I think it's going to be a really great addition. And I do think there's a lot of value, even for studio shooters, as we're headed down the road, with our technology right now. Getting rid of cords, I'm not going to lie to you, it's nice to get rid of the cords. But if you're primarily a studio shooter, yeah, I wouldn't use these. If you're primarily a studio shooter, I would use something like the Honey Badger or, another brand. But again, that's just my preference, right? Okay, so let's see here. Where am I at? Driving line. I'm aiming to get an older D5300 to move up from my D90. Okay, but you haven't found any Olympus bodies near you, but you'll definitely look into it. Yeah, driving line again, if the Olympus system, I love the Olympus system, yes, but if the Olympus system has things in it that you feel are of value to you and are going to help your photography, then I would wholeheartedly encourage you to take a good, hard look at it. Part of your consideration, to be fair. Now remember, I'm an Olympus Visionary, so as I tell you this, please understand, I'm being very sincere. Before you even bother looking at Olympus, what you should be doing is you should be looking at what accessories you currently own for your Nikons, your D5300 and your D90, because if you've got multiple lenses, well, understand that if you switch to Olympus, well, that would be great. You also need to change lenses. Now, I'm not saying that that's a reason not to change, but I am saying that that is a reason to make sure that you are considering all of the ramifications of your change. Because sometimes people figure, well, yeah, I'm just changing this body for this body, but no, then, you're forgetting, I have this plug-in wireless remote control, and I have these flash units that are dedicated to Nikon, and I have this, and I have that, and suddenly you realize, oh yeah, it's not really just about changing my camera system, it's about changing like everything, okay? So again, I think the Olympus stuff is awesome, but at the end of the day, change camera brands, folks. You change camera brands because your change, whatever it is you're going to, is going to fulfill a need. And hopefully the need is not gas, right? I mean, every photographer, we all have a little bit of gas along the way. I admitted to gas tonight when I bought my first AD200. Fortunately for me, I actually found a really good use for it and I fell in love with it. But, it was a gas purchase. I'm not proud of that. It simply was, okay? So when you're going to change and stuff like that, make sure that you are doing it for the right reasons. Nam, what about Olympus colors comparing with other brands? So, that's an interesting question. And I had this question when I was, a Nikon guy. I've heard people talk about the Sony colors. Canon colors are notorious. The only people that like Canon colors are Canon users, period. Again, I love the Olympus colors. I love the feel of it. But I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't find them unique. And I don't want to find them unique. So what I mean by that is, and this is why I mentioned Canon, right? Canon's got the reputation for having kind of a more contrasty type feel to their images. Now, Canon users don't think it is, but everybody else will tell you, oh yeah, Canon's like the blacks are really blocked and black, blocked and black. At the end of the day, I don't want my images to say, oh, that was shot with this camera, right? I want to tell people I shot with Olympus. I'm proud of it. I love it. I'm glad I made the switch. But I don't want my picture to say, shot with Olympus. No. And that's not really the goal. So I would tell you honestly, for me, sincerely, I didn't see a big difference switching from Nikon to Olympus in color. And that's exactly what I would expect. Sony people, and again, I'm not trying to start any fights, guys, right? Please. It's been really great that nobody's asked about. So far tonight, you've all been really good. There's been no questions about the letter Z or the letter R or the letters FFP. So thank you. I appreciate that. But I hear Sony people going on about, oh, the color this, color that. And if you like it and it makes it easier for you to work with it, awesome. But if that camera's color processing is defining your photography, I'm sorry, but in my opinion, you're doing it wrong. So I hope that makes sense, okay? So where are we at here? Mike, sorry. You also just bought the Adorama Equal and the Speedlight with the intensity in the 8200 and 600 Equal. Yeah, and they are simple to set up. I will tell you guys one thing, like, this is not popular, but I'll be honest. That 8600, right? It's a cool strobe. I do not own one. I have no intention of purchasing one, right? But just understand, if you're going to spend the money for it, because they're about to come out with, what is it, the 8400, which is a 400 watt second. So just to give you guys some perspective, the Honey Badgers that I used, they were 320 watt seconds, right? Pulsey Buff, the Alien Bees, they make a 400 and an 800 watt second. Those 600s, the Explore 600s, they are 600 watt seconds. That is a ton of light, gang, a ton of light. And those units are bigger and heavier, much bigger and heavier than these. They're not the kind of units you want to have to travel with 4 or 5 of them. You just don't, because they're heavy and they're big and they take up a lot of space. So understand that these 8200, so these little guys that are sitting in the back of this box here, it's basically the size of a Speedlight. It weighs a little bit more than a Speedlight, but it's basically the size of a Speedlight, but it's 3 times more powerful than the average Speedlight. So it's a 200 watt second flash. 200 watt seconds is a lot of light. So remember, even in my studio here where I was using 320 watt seconds, I was always using those lights down at like 1/8 of a power, 1/4 power, 1/16 power. Even with these now, I've done 2 shoots since I set the studio up completely with the 8200s. I'm using these at 1/4 power, 1/8 power, 1/16 power. So, be honest with yourself about whether or not you really need that much light, because you could buy like 2 of the Godox 8200s, put them in a twin head for the same price that you'll buy 1 of the 600s. So just saying, something to think about, okay? It's really kind of a great set of options that you've got here, okay? So, all right, scrolling back here because I know I missed a bunch of stuff. Let's see here. Ulysses, you don't see what's wrong with getting paid for recommending gear. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Ulysses, I have a lot of respect for Ken. I think I have more respect for Ken than most people on YouTube do. He does create a little bit of drama. I wish he didn't, but he means well. And his reason, especially for complaining about the affiliations and that kind of stuff, it's actually legitimate in the sense. I mean, let's be fair. There are some YouTubers that really push it, and there's a balance, right? Yes, we have to make money. I mean, I'm standing here right now. I've made what, $5 tonight from Ishmael, and I'm not complaining. I'm thrilled, but like, it's not like I'm making a ton of money. I make my money when companies hire me to come and teach. And that's where my money comes in. I don't mind telling you guys, on YouTube, every month, I make about $500. That's what I make, right? And so don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. It's nice to have that $500, but obviously I'm not paying my bills with YouTube, right? So I totally understand why some of the YouTubers do it and why they're kind of aggressive with it. But at the same time, there's a balance. I think it's important to be able to remain honest with your viewers and to be sincere, and to kind of not cause confusion. So that's why, especially when I do make gear changes like this one, I like to be very clear about it. I like to be very honest with people at the whys, because I know that there are people that will follow what I'm doing, and I don't want people to do that blindly. I really want people to make, really make sound, thought out decisions that are going to benefit them. That's very important to me, okay? So let's see here, scrolling back up. I think I missed a couple more in here. And then let's see, Elijah, am I still using tether tools? Absolutely. Every shoot, all my tether cables and that are sitting, right here. I still shoot with the tether block on the bottom of the camera. This is a tether table arrow that's sitting here. If you're going to tether, pretty much you're using tether tools or you're using junk. I mean that sincerely, okay? So let's see here. Mike, you're headed to Las Vegas on Sunday. Oh, I'm seriously jealous. I love Vegas, I really do. You rented a 16-35 f4, you're a Canon shooter. You're also planning on taking your 24-105, but leaving the 7200 at home. What other lenses would you be taking? Well, as long as you're not planning on doing like people stuff, but if you're going to shoot, kind of landscapes and scenery, maybe even if you're going out to like Red Rock or out into the desert and you want to shoot landscapes and scenery, I would say you've got a good set of lenses there. If you want to do a lot of kind of people things, well, okay, then maybe you might want to consider the longer lens. But no, Mike, I would say that's that's a good set of gear to take along, definitely. Okay. Ishmael, you just got a 28-inch collapsible beauty dish. Why do you get a shade darker spot in the center? Is it about distance? Okay. So actually, Ishmael, I'm sorry. God, I'm glad I scrolled back up because now I realize why you did the super chat. I'm sorry. All right. So your question, super easy answer. There is a video that I did here. Let me find a video and I'll show you guys the link. Okay. Hang on one second here. I'll get it up on the screen. If you go to my YouTube, I'll give you the answer, but I also want you to see the video and tell people about it. If you go to my YouTube channel and on the little magnifier glass on the home page, just type in beauty dish, okay? And when the search results come up, you want to watch the very first one, beauty dish lighting tutorial, how to make a DIY beauty dish with an umbrella for less than $7. I actually show examples of what you're talking about in this video, Ishmael. And what it is, the dark spot is coming from the dish that's in the center of the beauty dish. So here's a metal beauty dish, since this one only has a diffuser in the center, right? Here's a 28-inch metal dish. If I take the sock off, you've got this disc right here. And then the flash tube, of course, sits behind it where you see my hand sticking through. So this is the dark spot that you're seeing in the catch lights. When you get the catch lights, that's the dark spot. And the trick to that is, certainly it's a matter of personal preference, but most photographers like having so the reasons why you would want to use a beauty dish is you get a very natural looking catch light. That's one of the first things, right? Because it is going to be a truly round catch light. It's also worth noting, that's why I went with this particular softbox type, because you'll notice it's actually round. Most of the time you're looking at octagons or things like that. So if you see a big catch light in the eye, it's not a natural shape. I went with this because it's round, and round is a natural shape. But the dark spot is simply coming from the disc in the center of your beauty dish. That's where that comes from. And so that's actually, it's actually meant to be there as far as that goes. So. DMAC, how come you didn't go with Flashpoint? I know they're basically the same, but I hear the US warranty is better with Flashpoint. I'm not so sure that that's the case, DMAC. I bought mine through a company on Amazon, and I feel really bad because I do not remember the company's name right now, but they actually give an additional 6-month warranty on top. I mean, I could have bought them from Adorama too. It is basically exactly the same thing. There's nothing wrong with theirs, whatever. I don't want to stir up a bunch of stuff. I don't do a ton of business with Adorama. I do shop with them from time to time. They're just kind of not my my go-to as far as that goes. But there would be nothing wrong with buying the Flashpoint brands at all. And there's a mix of stuff in here right now. Like even this particular S bracket that I have is the Glow S bracket. So it's the Flashpoint or the Adorama brand, as well. So I do have a mix of them, as far as that goes. Okay. So let's see, Troy. Why would a dyed cotton canvas background have a green tinted gradient only on the shadow side? Seems to happen regardless of exposure and distance. And then he goes on to add neutral gray background, that is. Gray's got green in it. Gray has blue in it also, depending on which shade of gray. So if your exposure is not right on, it's, a very good possibility that you will pick up, a tint in those areas. If a gray background's properly lit, you're not going to get the tint from it. So it's basically a matter of, your lighting combined with exposure, potentially underexposed on the background. That's why you're picking up the tint. But that's something that you could select in Photoshop and get rid of there. So somebody's saying wireless tethering is too slow. Yeah, wireless, Tether Tool has the Case Air, which is really nice. It's still a little bit too slow for my taste. I don't think we're that far down the road before we're going to be able to do wireless. But I just don't think it's quite there yet where it needs to be, at least not for all uses. For me doing models, no. For somebody doing product work and things like that, wireless is like a great option. Or if you're doing real estate photography or any of that kind of stuff, wireless is outstanding to work with. But for people, when you want to see those images as you're going, the wireless is still just a little bit too slow. Okay. So let's see here, just scrolling up. Let's see. All right, I think I'm caught up on the chat. So I still had a couple questions that came in earlier. Let's get these. Yeah, we still got about 15 minutes out of our 90, so that's good. Let me, somebody messaged me. I talked about this group last week. So you guys know that I have a Facebook group. So just a real quick Olympus thing. Somebody asked me last week, and I got another message, hey, can you remind me about that group? They wanted to know about the group that I mentioned last week that was an education group about Olympus. So I'm going to put the link in there. I'll bring it up on the screen here. This is the group. It's the OMD Camera Education Group. This is not sponsored by Olympus. It's basically a user community. But what's actually really interesting in the group, if you do switch over to Micro Four Thirds and Olympus, this is not a picture group. You don't post pictures for critique and that kind of stuff. This is a group you go to if you have technical questions, gear questions, things like that. And the group is very, very well run. It's very, very well managed. Not a lot of drama, all that kind of stuff. So I highly recommend it if you, especially if you're a recent 4/3 convert and you're looking for a good place to be able to use as a resource to pick up information along the way. Definitely a great group to check out. So let's see here. Bill Hardiman, you're freaking out seeing that 40 to 150 behind me. I'm afraid you're going to knock it off, hit the stand and knock it off. All right, here. I got like all OCD people. No, I'm kidding. All OCD people here tonight. All right. So I'm not going to do the Jason Lanier thing, and it's not happening. All right. So anyway, there you go. It's gone in here. Just to play it safe, like we'll get rid of everything. All right. And just to be super safe, Bill, I will use my Tether Tools tether strap. Okay. I'll open the laptop up just a little bit there and strap it down. Now nothing can go anywhere. How's that? All right, cool. All right, so I got a couple more questions here in my list, and then you guys add some more questions in here, okay? Let's see. Michael, so this is a question that unfortunately I have more questions about, but let me give you a couple of the answers because this one comes up from time to time, so it's worth talking about. His question was, how can he find new clients that aren't models without bugging people with ads that don't do anything on Facebook. And he says he doesn't have the confidence to just ask people at the supermarket or similar places. So the challenge that I have here, Michael, is that, and I know you remember my Facebook group, so I hope that you will give me more feedback in the Facebook group. When I hear the clients and the models thing together, I have a feeling that when you say clients, you're looking just to find more models to photograph. And it would be nice if people pay you. And here's the reason I say that. If you guys have read my bio, you know that for quite a few years, I mentored and worked with models who were serious about entering the industry professionally. In other words, getting signed by agencies and getting legitimate work, paid work. Not, doing boudoir and lingerie and glamour and nudes, but being in ads and magazines, okay? So when I do those consultations, which I still do, and I see somebody asked about doing a photography consultation with me. Thank you, Dwayne. I will give you the information in just a second, okay? When I still do consultations with models, in fact, I had one with a young woman this afternoon down in Florida that I'm going to be working with when I do my trip at the end of the month. The advice that I give to young models who are entering the business professionally, in other words, their goal is to get signed by a modeling agency and get work that is paid work. The advice I give them, don't throw things at me, please, don't hate me, is to not pay a photographer to get good pictures. The reason I advise them that is because they'd be pretty stupid to do that. So now, before you all get your back up against the wall, well, I put in a lot of time and effort, and I buy all this gear, and I deserve to make money, they're gonna make money. Just chill out a second. And let's put some context here. Young girl wants to become a model, a professional model, intends to make money. But the point is, she doesn't know if she will make money. Because the simple fact of the matter is, the act of submitting to a modeling agency with the hope of getting signed and making money, it's like winning the lottery, literally. It's a gamble. So, no, I'm sorry. It's not fair to rationalize that a girl should have to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars for that chance that she might get signed. And worse yet, most of the photographers that will take those hundreds or thousands of dollars don't have a freaking clue about what kind of images the girl really needs. All they want to do is get the girl half naked, put her in lingerie, put her in a swimsuit, and take pictures. There are photographers here in the Philadelphia area, in Pennsylvania. So keep in mind, folks, Philadelphia. Anytime they shoot a model for a modeling portfolio, they're going to put the girl in a bikini. Now think about it, and if you don't know where Philadelphia is, go look at a map. How many swimwear companies are likely to come to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to shoot a swimwear catalog? That'd be a big whopping zero, never, not gonna happen, right? I mean, that's just what it is. So then why do we do that? And no, it's not because they need a body shot. Because if the photographer actually understood what a body shot is, the photographer then realized that in the modeling world, a body shot does not mean that you see skin. A body shot can be fully clothed as long as it shows the model's figure and proportion. So it isn't realistic for a young girl that doesn't have a ton of money to go and spend all that kind of money to get pictures on, when there are plenty of people like you guys that would love to photograph a pretty girl. And no offense, gang, but you need the practice. You need the experience. So it's a win. It's a win all the way around. So Michael, I need to know a little bit more information. Like, when you say clients, are you actually getting paid? Or is it just you need to find more models to photograph? Because it's two completely different answers. So if you give me that information this week in the group, I'll bring that question up next week and we'll dig into it a little deeper, because I know there are going to be some people that will push back a little bit on my answer, and I will gladly take all comers on that. I promise you, because it's something that I feel very very strongly about. Okay. So actually, Art in the Dark, even that is not a correct statement. So Art in the Dark, right? If the agency wants them, they will pay. That's not entirely true. That's a semi-truth. So let me explain. All right, just so you guys can maybe put some of these myths to rest if you want to help young women. If a girl lives in East Podunk, Iowa, and she wants to become a model, and she goes to Des Moines, Iowa, and she finds a modeling agency and they say, hey, we'll sign you. I'm sorry, they're not going to pay for the young lady's portfolio, and they shouldn't. It would be pretty stupid for them to do that. Why? Because how much paid modeling work do we think there is in Des Moines, Iowa, right? There just isn't a lot. Now, that doesn't mean the modeling agency is a scam. That just means the modeling agency is being realistic. We're not making enough money to justify paying that kind of overhead. And here's the worst part. Art in the dark, when people say, and believe me, Art in the dark, I want to make sure, I'm not picking on you. What you typed is a very common lesson that photographers pass on to young models, but it's an extremely misleading lesson. And here's why. So let me flip the script on Des Moines. Let's just say that the young girl goes to New York and she walks into Ford, the premier modeling agency in the world. And Ford loves her. They decide they are going to sign her. Ford will indeed basically sweep her up, send her out to 4 or 5 of the hottest it photographers of the moment in New York City, and they will build her an amazing portfolio that could be worth as much as 10 grand by the time it's done. And she will start working almost immediately because Ford has clients that all they have to do is call the client and say, hey, I'm going to send you this girl. And the client will say, great. That sounds awesome, right? Well, on one hand, it is awesome. On the other hand, Ford is not paying for her portfolio, even though I just said that they were. What Ford is doing is they are loaning her the money. It's in advance. So the reason why she will start working immediately is that Ford wants to make sure they're going to get their money back. So she's not going to see any money until she has earned back that $10,000 in profit. Then she will start seeing the fees that are being charged minus 15 or 20%. So, that story about, yes, if an agency likes you, they'll pay. Yeah, kind of. It really, we should be telling people, yes, if a big agency in a big market likes you, they will essentially loan you the money, but they don't pay. Modeling agencies are nothing more than employment agencies. That's all they are. It's somebody that you go to for the purpose of helping you find work. That's all a modeling agency is. It's just that they specialize in working with models, whereas a regular employment agency deals with all kinds of jobs and job descriptions, right? So that's basically what's going on here, okay? So again, Art in the Dark, I'm really glad you typed that. So I hope you don't think I'm picking on you, because it is. It's a great thing to understand because people give that advice all the time. And it's not wrong, but it's also not entirely accurate. Right? So, Michael, my God, Michael, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. As far as I know, nobody's using I Shoot Bugs on their logo, so you could totally make that your logo. Instead of having the target like I have, maybe it's a fly swatter or something. I'm just saying. But seriously, thank you so much. And the cool part of it is I've been dabbling with some macro work lately. Trust me, it's not amazing. But I do hopefully have some DIY stuff coming up for some macro shooters over the winter when I'm not able to get out and about that much. So somebody asked, let's see, Dwayne asked about doing the consultations. All that information, Dwayne, is on my website, and I'll get you guys the link here in just a second. If you go to the lectures and the workshops tab, click on video consultations, and let me grab the link. That's where you'll find it. And bear with me, I'm going to paste this in the chat window here so that you have it. And whoops, I'm going to try and paste it in the chat window. There you go. There's the link that you guys need. Michael, again, thank you so much, man. I sincerely appreciate the support. Okay. Troy, do I have a suggestion for a pair of inexpensive wall mount boom arms for a 14-foot wide room? Honestly, there's not a lot of super inexpensive stuff. These ones that you see here are the Manfrotto ones, which indeed they're about $129. I believe it's Impact. If you go to Amazon, Impact has lesser expensive ones. The problem with the Impact ones is they don't support as much weight, so it depends on what light you're putting on them, and I don't think they extend as far. So you need to compare the stats with those and the Manfrottos. The Manfrottos are great, but yeah, they come in, I think it's around $129, somewhere in that neck of the woods. So, but those are the only ones that I know, unless of course you were to do, some type of, like a DIY type build, as far as that goes. Michael Haynes used the great focus stacking feature in the Olympus cameras. Yeah, I finally had a chance to toy around with it. That's why I've been playing with some macro stuff. It's awesome. It really is. I'm finally getting a few minutes to experiment, like with the ProRes and some of the focus stacking and all that kind of stuff that, of course, I never had with that other brand. And now the problem is now I'm like coming up with all these ideas like, ooh, I've got to try it for this. Because you know me, I'm a portrait guy. So every time I find one of these cool little tricks like live composite, I'm like, how could I use this in some kind of a portrait type setting and that? So yeah, but it is very cool. Flying Monkey, am I ever going to shoot outside? I shoot outside, occasionally. So you guys saw shots in that I did from like out of Chicago and that. I'm a studio guy. I get outside from time to time. I know that Irene checks in here from time to time on Monday nights and really tries to get me going about shooting outside. It will happen. You're going to see some outside stuff coming up as we get into the fall and that. I won't lie to you guys. I don't do crazy heat. Here in Pennsylvania, like right now, it was like a heat index of 102 today. So I'm sorry, but I've never met a model that's going to look good at 102 degrees. Like it just doesn't work that way. So unfortunately here in Pennsylvania, the summers are extremely humid. And so in terms of shooting outside, we get a little bit of time in late spring and we get a little bit of time in early fall. And that's the only time that there's really any, great, outdoor shooting. So I just don't do a lot of it, but there will be some. So David, is the site still available for models? So if you're looking for information for models, I'll show you how you get it. I used to maintain a separate website for models, but all you have to do, you can still help them out here. Let me bring it back up on the screen. Send them to my website. Whoops. Let me get rid of that URL there because we don't need that. Okay, we'll make that go away. And let me get this up on the screen for you. There we go. All you have to do is send it to my website, and at the top of every page, there is a link that you see right here called Resources for Models. And if they click on that, and by the way, this Resources for Models, guys, I hate to tell you, but it's also very, very helpful for all of you that photograph models. So what you'll find in here, number one, the first thing is all 50 states in the US. I'm sorry, it's not international yet. This is, and I guarantee you, the most up-to-date modeling agency listing in the United States. Anywhere online, I guess it. I guarantee it. Makeup artist directory, also promo agency directory. So if you're looking for a makeup artist, here's a great place to find one, okay? Also, you'll find all kind of interesting articles which are helpful to you guys. If you want to help models and not just take pretty sexy pictures of them, but actually help them get work, read this stuff. 15 tips for a great modeling portfolio. Modeling portfolio 101, what you need to know. All of that kind of stuff, okay? And here's the sorry part, guys. You're actually going to find it really boring. Not the writing, but the kind of pictures that you need. That's the challenge that these young women face. So trade, right? If the girl's willing to do something sexy or something really fun for you, do that. But then make sure you're doing something that's actually going to help her get work. Not that you want. In other words, don't make it all about you. I know that as photographers, myself included, we're all about working out a trade. It's nice to not spend money to get the model, right? But a trade means everybody gets something. And don't think you're so good that what the model gets is one of your photos. Wow. No, what the model should get is something that she can actually benefit from. All right. And your sexy picture or your crazy beauty shot like I do is not going to get that model work. So you do something for her that's actually going to get you or to get her work. That's really the key. Okay. All right. So let me see here. Let's switch this back. Okay. One more question, guys. And then we are like out of time, man. Wow. So yeah, Cleveland, Houston, oppressive heat. Yeah, I hear you guys. In UK, I know rain. However, the last time I was in the UK, Mark, it was like 90 some degrees there too, unfortunately. But trust me, I know the rain thing. I have British relatives, so I totally get it, okay? Gord Smith, I like to hear that. 3 hours worth of shooting. Hey, believe me, guys, if you are watching this tonight, 90 minutes, you owe me 180 minutes before next week, okay? Get out there and shoot. So, all right, let me take one more question off the list and we're going to wrap this up. And if you remember my Facebook group and you're really bored, I'll be going live on Facebook 10 minutes after I wrap up here and doing some photo reviews for the night, okay? So, let's see here. Patricia had a great question. I always mention that it's super important to practice. what she asks is, and keep in mind, this question is coming from a woman, but it's great that it's coming from a woman. Her question is, how much can you learn from just being behind the camera? Should you also be modeling to explain it to your models how to do so and so? And the answer is for men and women, kind of. So since you asked it this way, Patricia, I ain't never going to be modeling, right? But should I be able to do and demonstrate effectively all the things that I'm asking my model to do? Absolutely. There's only two exceptions. Exception number one, if I'm working with a ballet dancer, try as I might, I will never be able to stand on point, so I can't demonstrate that. Number two, if I'm working with somebody that's really good at contorting their body, I'm not, so I can't demonstrate that. But otherwise, yes, if I'm going to show a girl how to do a proper pose, if I'm going to show a girl how to do a bikini pose and not suck her stomach in, because if a person sucks their stomach in, they're holding their breath. When they're holding their breath, tension starts to build, starts to show in their face. Their shoulders start to rise. Looks horrible. But there is a way, a posture way for a model to be able to keep her stomach tight without sucking in her stomach. So all those kinds of things. So should I know how to do that? Should I understand that? Yes, I absolutely should. That's very important, and it's very, very helpful. Don't ask your models to do something that you can't do, okay? So, all right, Robert Duvall, I'm always up for a challenge. So you ready? We're gonna finish on a fun note. He wants to see my bikini pose. So guys, I'm not gonna give you my bikini pose, but I'm gonna teach you something. So here's your posing lesson for the night, all right? So a couple of things. Let's get this out of the way. Let me back up to where you can see me. So, if you are photographing a woman, a female, so remember the traditional shape that we're going for, it's that hourglass figure. And in all fairness, no woman has that hourglass figure. That's why the pageant models, and let's see, can you see my feet? Now you can see my feet. That's why the pageant models stand in a three-point stance like a ballerina so that their hips are slightly turned, their shoulders are to the camera, and now it thins because they're not square, right? But for a bikini model, we want more shape. So I'm wearing a loose shirt, I'm not skinny, you're not gonna see the shape, but here's the tips. If you are going to turn a model in a bikini or anything tight, it could be a pair of jeans, but if you're gonna turn her profile to the camera, don't let the girl put her weight on her front leg and bend the back leg. By doing this, you're creating a crease in the butt and you're flattening the bottom part of the butt. So you take all the shape out. Also, because she's sitting on that front leg, it squares off her back. You lose the nice shape. So if you're going to put a model profile to the camera, it's always the camera leg. The leg closest to the camera, you have them put their weight on the back leg and bend the front leg. Now, you're going to have a nicer curve on the butt and you get a natural curve in the back. So you guys can make fun of me, but if you guys actually try this, even you men, if you try it, you'll be able to feel your own body posture doing it. So that's the first thing. Now, when you're scheduling a shoot, guys, so here's the gold tip of the night, okay? When you're scheduling a shoot, and you have to use a little bit of decorum and respect, but every time I schedule a shoot with a girl, if there's going to be any body wear involved, swimsuits, lingerie, if it's a fine art shoot, or she's going to wear anything tight, as soon as she says, yes, let's do this date, the first question I ask, is that an okay time of the month to shoot? Because I want you to feel your best. That's exactly how I ask it. No girl feels sexy when it's the wrong time of the month. And they will continually, and I don't mean they're bad, but they will continually forget about that when they're scheduling the date. So you ask. I have never, in all of my years, had somebody offended because they asked that question. In fact, 100% of the time, they have thanked me for thinking about that. But life happens. Sometimes their schedule's off. So it's the wrong time of the month, or it's just after, or just before, whatever, and they're feeling bloated. The first instinct a person is going to have is to suck their stomach in. So when I suck my stomach in fact, here, I'll do it here. You're not going to see anything in the stomach, but if you watch my shoulders, I suck my stomach in, my shoulders automatically lift. And the longer I stand here, the problem I have now is while I hold that stomach in, I can't take in air. So I'm expending air as I'm talking to you. I can't take in air, and then what starts to happen is the shoulders start to lift, and then tension starts to show in the face. You can hear it in my voice. I'm working too hard to keep these muscles tight. That is not the way to get a good relaxed expression. So what you do, those of you that were in the military have an advantage because you know this really, really well. It's shoulders back, chest out. All of you, you can do it sitting down or standing up. So if you're sitting, I expect you all to be trying this, and if you're standing, try it. Find the bottom of your rib cage. And basically you're going to push your shoulders back and you are going to lift your rib cage up. and out. Not your shoulders. So watch, when I do it, my shoulders do not come up. So don't be doing this. None of that. It's rib cage out, shoulders back. Now here's the best part of this. If you do it when you're naked in the mirror, turn sideways, suck your stomach in. Then do what I just told you, shoulders back, chest out. Your stomach's gonna look exactly the same. Exactly the same. But here's the cool part. When I do this, it's an awkward position, but the best part is I could stand here for 20 minutes and talk because I can still breathe. I still have airflow. And I can keep my shoulders down and keep them relaxed as a result. So to get the hourglass figure, going back to where we were, so here's where you gotta use your imagination because I don't have it, right? You turn, you're the photographer, I'm looking straight at you right now. You turn your model about 45 degrees. It works in either direction. 45 degrees from the camera. Not quite, we'll go maybe 30 degrees. How's that, all right? Then bend the camera leg. If you want to exaggerate those curves, make sure the model's in heels. But if it's a bikini, please don't put your model in heels. How many women wear heels to the beach, right? I'm not a fan of bikinis and heels. But if you want to get more of a curve, just have the girl here. Just have the girl lift her heel. So knees down, just have a girl lift her heel up and it will exaggerate the butt lines and the back of the line even more. So you're going to add to that, we're not quite at 45 degrees. We're going to drop the hip. We're going to bend that leg. Now we're going to do the shoulders, rib cage out. And then the last piece, without moving the hips have to stay at that 30 or 35 degrees. We are now going to twist the shoulders back to the camera and put the hands on the hips. That's the pageant girl bikini pose. If you try that with a girl in the mirror, you will see the figure 8 shape, okay? So once again, that's a lot to take in, but you can play it back, you can watch it, but now we're at way over 90 minutes. So you guys better get out and shoot this week, okay? And I want to see some pictures from your shoots in my Facebook group. I will be back next week. Got a video coming up. Hope to see some of you in New York this weekend. Whatever you do, gang, first of all, thank you for being here tonight. Seriously, I really appreciate it. But whatever you do, remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.